Hello, Miss. This is our group, and we choose question number 2.
Definition of executive. Executive branch in Malaysia usually is to formulate and implement the policy in the country. Executive branch is chosen by the public through election and government will bring great impact on political system. Executive power is vested in the cabinet led by the Prime Minister and the Malaysia Constitution stipulate that the Prime Minister must be member of the lower house of parliament followed by the various ministers of the cabinet. Definition of legislative. Legislative is made up of lower house and the upper house which is consisting of representative of people and assisted by Prime Minister to enforce the law. Legislative are the laws that are established by the parliament at the federal level and by the state legislative assembly. Purpose of legislative body is with parliament which is consist of yang di-Pertua Agong and two assembly of parliament which is are the Senate and House of Representatives. Type of executive include the nominal or titular and real. The president is the nominal executive and the council of ministers headed by the prime minister is the real executive. Nominal executive is not responsible for each action as these are performed it is named by the real executive. Real executive is responsible for all the action of the nominal executive. Hereditary and elected executive is a form of government and succession of power in which the throne passes from one member of a ruling family to another member of the same family. The top elected executive refers to an executive who has been directly or indirectly chosen by the general populace to serve for a specific duration or even for life. Single and plural executive. A single executive is a functionary who has complete control over all executive functions. The executive is referred to as the plural executive when the executive functions are delegated to a group of people or to a committee, council, and are collectively exercised by all the members of the council.
Parliamentary and President. Parliamentary executive is a mean close relationship between the legislature and the executive and the member of the executive also member of the legislature. Next, executive president is means separation of power between the executive and the legislature, and the executive is not responsible to legislature and neither can dissolve or remove the other. Next type of legislative is mean bicameral means a legislature that have two chambers. Number 1, to have confused public opinion. Number 2, the second speech unity or incisive. And unicameral means a legislature with one house. Unicameral legislature is the chamber is a protection against unicameral, and the second house is important to provide the legislature. Next, a function of executive is enforcement of law means every time there are violation of the law is responsibility of the executive to cover up. Next, I will pass to the next president.
Defense, War, and Peace. Article 115. The King may issue a proclamation of emergency if he is satisfied that a grave emergency exists which threatens the security, economy, life, or public order of the country. During an emergency, the King may promulgate emergency ordinance and his Parliament may pass emergency law. Policy making. The policy is implemented under the jurisdiction of the Constitution and government regulation. Under the Constitution, the federal, state, and local government are given constitutional right to implement public policy. Lawmaking under system of delegated legislation. The delegated legislation is law made by an executive authority under power delegated from a legislature by enhancement of primary legislation. and grant the executive agents power to implement and administer the requirement of the primary legislation. It is law made by a person or body other than a legislature but with the legislature authority. Lawmaking. According to the Article 44, the Malaysian Parliament is a bicameral legislature that consists of two big Dewan, that is, first Dewan Negara and Dewan Rakyat. In parliamentary system, the ministers are also members of the legislature. By referring to Article 73 to 79, Parliament may make law on order under the federal and the concurrent legislative list. Only Parliament may make law in matter in the federal list, while both Parliament and state legislature may make law on matter in concurrent list. A state legislature may make law on order in the state list.
The functions of legislative in Malaysia are deliberative democracy. It is deliberating on matters of nation's importance, public issues, problems, and needs in a modern legislature. The legislature reflects public opinions on a variety of issues. The debates in the legislature are very educational for the peoples. On my point of view, the deliberative democracy gives the democratic leaders a better understanding of public issues and enables people to participate in decisions making and give opportunities to people to express their opinions on public issues as long as they are legal. Next, the legislative has a power control over the executive or council of ministers through procedure. The question tower is the important tower of the two houses, of which is House of Representatives and Senate. The Parliament has the right to put questions and supplementary questions to the Cabinet to obtain information on a matter of public importance or to ventilate a grievance. Second procedures are no confidence motions. The Government Act against the constitutional provisions. No confidence of the vote is passed, the government will resign and request for dissolutions of the assembly from the monarch, or the monarch are allowed to exercise His Majesty vested power to appoint a new chief minister whom commands majority support. Censure motions are dependent on constitutions of the body concerns. The motions of censure expresses disapproval and does not cause in the resignations of minister. The censure motion are against a group of minister or an individual minister that expresses disapproval against his policies or deed. Constituent functions and legislative is the legislature has the authority to modify the constituent. Article 44. The legislative authority of the Federation shall be vested in a parliament, which shall consist of the Yang di-Pertuan Agong and the two houses of parliament and House of Representatives. For this purpose, the legislature must approve special legislations known as amendment in accordance with the method outlined in the constitutions, and the legislative must pass the amendment with a 2/3, 3/4 or absolute majority of votes. In conclusions, different forms of government have different executive powers. The executive functions differs from country to country depending on the form of government. The legislature and the legislative must generally agree on the legislative process. Each uses its institutional and constitutional advantage to try to obtain the desired policy. Institutional and political conditions shape the relative degree of influence. Executives are sometimes able to achieve their policy objective on their own. executive and legislative branch each has functions that are primarily focused on improving the state, nations, and country become more better. Therefore, if a country executive and legislative branches perform these functions very well, it always benefits greatly.